What if you could translate your most complex thoughts into text in real time using a brain implant inserted through a 1 mm slit? Well, this technology has just been unveiled. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, China's first advanced humanoid robot is no longer a laboratory prototype. It has just received an official passport to be marketed throughout Europe. And behind all the headlines, a Google quantum computer has just performed an impossible calculation. An achievement that reopens the debate on quantum supremacy and that, quietly, may have rendered all the encryption that protects your banks and passwords obsolete. Welcome, pioneers of the future. This is your weekly update on a world that waits for no one. Technology is being written live in engineering labs, launch centers, and conferences. The pieces of tomorrow's puzzle are being put together today, and the implications are deeper than we can imagine. Get ready. Let's decode what really happened this week. Let's start with news that shakes the very foundations of the digital world. Everything you do online, from a bank transaction to sending a private message, is protected by an invisible wall called encryption. This wall is built with mathematical problems so complex that it would take a classic computer thousands, perhaps millions, of years to solve them. This wall was believed to be, for all practical purposes, unbreakable. That fundamental belief has just been put to the test. On October 22nd, 2025, Google announced an achievement that is reverberating throughout security agencies and financial institutions around the world. Its latest quantum computer successfully performed a specific calculation task that is proven and conclusively beyond the capabilities of even the world's most powerful classical supercomputers. We are talking about Frontier, Fugaku, the fastest machines humanity has ever built. All of them together could not solve in a lifetime what Google's machine did. This reignites, with full force, the debate about quantum supremacy. This is the term used to describe the tipping point, the exact moment when a quantum machine ceases to be a laboratory curiosity and becomes a tool that can do something practical and meaningful that no classical machine, no matter how large, can replicate. Google claims to have crossed that line. But what does that mean in practice? This reignites, with full force, the debate about quantum supremacy. This is the term used to describe the tipping point, the exact moment when a quantum machine ceases to be a laboratory curiosity and becomes a tool that can do something practical and meaningful that no classical machine, no matter how large, can replicate. Google claims to have crossed that line. But what does that mean in practice? Let's use an analogy. Think of current encryption, the kind that protects your bank, as a lock with a secret based on a gigantic maze. This maze is made up of the multiplication of two huge prime numbers. For a classical computer, finding the exit, that is, figuring out what those two numbers are, is like trying every possible route, one at a time. It's brute force work that would take forever. Google's quantum computer, however, does not play this game. Thanks to the principles of quantum mechanics, such as superposition and entanglement, it does not try one route at a time. Almost. Magically, it explores all possible routes simultaneously. It sees the maze from above and finds the exit in a matter of minutes or seconds. The October 22nd announcement is a deafening global wake-up call. It means that the security architecture underpinning global commerce, military communications, and personal privacy is fundamentally vulnerable. It is no longer a question of if it can be broken, but when and by whom. The race now is not just to build more powerful quantum computers. It is a desperate race to find and standardize a new form of encryption, called post-quantum cryptography, that is secure against quantum attacks. The lock that has protected the digital world for 30 years has been broken. Now, The world urgently needs a new type of lock, from an invisible threat to a very real physical presence. The global race for humanoid robots is hotter than ever. We have seen impressive prototypes from Tesla with Optimus, Boston Dynamics with Atlas, and countless other startups. But until now, they existed in demonstration videos and controlled factory floors. This week, a new competitor took a giant leap forward, and it didn't come from Silicon Valley. Chinese automotive giant Chery Group, during its technology event held between October 17 and 21, 2025, officially unveiled its advanced humanoid robot, named Mornine. This robot, part of the company's ambitious IMOGA project, already demonstrates stable bipedal locomotion and complex interaction capabilities. But the big news, the real game-changer, was not just the robot itself. It was the document it received. Mornine officially became the world's first humanoid robot to obtain full certification from the European Union, the famous CE marking. And this is not a simple certification. The robot underwent a battery of rigorous tests covering absolutely everything: the security of its hardware, the stability of its software, and, crucially, its robustness in cybersecurity. Let's understand what this means with an analogy. Think of CE certification as the most difficult and comprehensive driver's test in the world, combined with a psychological evaluation and a military-grade safety test, but all for a robot. The European Union didn't just check whether Mornine can walk without falling or whether its motors are safe. It checked whether its AI brain is stable, whether it reacts predictably in unexpected situations, and, most importantly, whether it is hackable. Mornine passed all the tests. This is the regulatory green light that the entire industry has been waiting for. It is official permission for Mornine to leave the promotional videos and enter the European labor market in stores, hospitals, logistics centers, and eventually homes. Chery is not just building a robot, it is building a mass-marketable product. EU certification opens the door to 27 countries at once. This fundamentally changes the landscape. Until now, the discussion was about who has the most impressive robot. Now, the question is, who has the robot that can be legally sold and operated alongside humans? China, through Chery, has just signaled that it doesn't just want to manufacture the robots of the future. It wants to set the safety standards and market them on a global scale. The era of the humanoid robot as a co-worker and no longer as a research curiosity may have just begun. From Earth's factories to the vastness of space. For more than 50 years since the last Apollo mission, humanity has not set foot on the moon. The footprints left in the lunar dust have become monuments to a bygone era. Now, we are witnessing, piece by piece, the assembly of the machine that will take us back. The Apollo generation is about to give way to the Artemis generation. On October 24, 2025, a visually impressive and technically critical milestone was reached inside NASA's vehicle assembly building. The Orion spacecraft, which was poetically named Integrity for this mission, was officially stacked and connected. It was lifted by massive cranes and meticulously positioned atop the most powerful rocket ever built by humankind, the Space Launch System, or SLS. This was the final click. The last major component of the assembly before the complete vehicle is unveiled. This is the exact configuration that will take 4 astronauts on a historic trip around the Moon next year on the mission known as Artemis II. Let's use an analogy to understand the importance of this moment. Imagine building the most advanced arrow in history. The SLS rocket, with its colossal thrusters, is the shaft and feathers of the arrow. It is the brute force, the pure engine that will tear through the atmosphere and hurl the payload out of Earth's gravity well. The Orion Integrity spacecraft, on the other hand, is the tip of that arrow. But it is an incredibly smart arrowhead. It is the command module, the life support system, the heat shield capable of withstanding re-entry at lunar speeds, and the astronaut's lifeboat. Joining the two together, stacking Integrity on top of the SLS, means that the vehicle is complete. The machine is assembled and ready to fly. Inside that capsule next year will be astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. They will form the first crew to travel into deep space in more than half a century. They won't be landing yet. Artemis II is a 10-day round trip around the Moon. It is a stress test of all critical systems, from deep space navigation to life support, culminating in a high-speed re-entry test. But this is not just a repeat of Apollo. The Artemis program has a different goal: permanence. The goal is to build a lunar space station, the Gateway, and establish a sustainable human presence on the Moon. This is the necessary stepping stone for humanity's next giant leap: Mars. The assembly of Integrity on October 24th is not just the end of preparation for a mission. It is the visible and tangible beginning of the human interplanetary era. Now, let's move from the exploration of outer space to the final frontier, the inner space of the human mind. We have been talking about brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs, for years. The idea of controlling machines, computers, or prosthetic limbs with just our thoughts has always seemed like the stuff of science fiction. We've seen companies like Neuralink make progress, but the main barrier has always been the nature of the surgery. To get a clear signal from the brain, a highly invasive procedure was required, opening the skull and implanting electrodes deep into the brain tissue. This week, a company called Precision Neuroscience revealed details of its radically different approach, one that could completely change the game. They presented their interface, the Layer 7 cortical interface. It is an ultra-flexible implant, described as thinner than a human hair, but containing over 1,000 tiny electrodes. It is a very high-density sensor array. But what is most revolutionary is not just the implant, it is how it is inserted. Precision Neuroscience has developed a surgical technique they call micro-slit. Instead of a full craniotomy, the procedure involves creating a tiny slit in the skull, only 1 millimeter thick. Let's look at the analogy that defines this technology. Imagine that your skull is a closed door. The traditional surgical approach to a high-density BCI is like breaking down the door and installing bulky equipment inside the room. Precision Neuroscience's approach is different. It's like sliding an ultra-thin, flexible sheet of paper, or tape, through the exact 1 millimeter gap under the door. The Layer 7 implant is so thin that it simply slides through this microslot and gently unfurls over the surface of the brain, the cortex, without causing trauma to the tissue. It is minimally invasive neurosurgery for a maximum performance implant. And what does this implant do once it's there? This is where the second part of the news comes in. A company executive, in a description that perfectly captures the goal, described the system's software decoder as Google Translate for brain activity. Think about it. When you decide to move your arm or formulate a word in your mind, your brain fires off a complex pattern of neural activity. Layer 7 reads that pattern with its 1,000 electrodes. The software then learns to correlate that specific pattern with the intention or word. It's not reading your mind or your abstract thoughts. It's reading your intention to move and speak. It builds a real-time dictionary between your unique neural language and digital language. It becomes the Rosetta Stone for your brain, translating thoughts of movement or speech directly into computer commands. The immediate implications are transformative for patients with severe paralysis or conditions such as ALS, giving them the ability to communicate and interact with the world again. But in the long term, this technology opens the door to a new paradigm of human-computer interaction. We are talking about thought-to-text communication, control of complex devices, and eventually cognitive augmentation. The barrier between biological intention and digital action is officially dissolving. Finally, let's move on to fundamental science that can literally save the planet. Every year, the scientific world holds its breath for the announcement of the Nobel Prizes. And the 2025 Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded for a creation that sounds like something out of an alien engineering manual: the invention and development of metal organic frameworks, or MOFs. So what the heck are MOFs? In simple terms, they are the most porous materials ever created by humankind. They are essentially programmable sponges designed at the molecular level. To understand why this is worthy of a Nobel Prize, let's use the analogy of an atomic-scale Lego set. MOFs are constructed using two basic components: metal ion blocks, the connectors, and organic molecule rods, the links. The brilliance and the reason for the award is that scientists have discovered that by carefully choosing which metal blocks and which organic rods to use, they can build, atom by atom, structures with pores of either exact sizes and shapes. They can design and build a perfect molecular trap, optimized to capture only a specific type of molecule, while letting all others pass through. They are not just porous, they are absurdly porous. The internal surface area of a single gram of a MOF, an amount that would fit on a thimble, can, when unfolded, cover an entire football field. This is where science fiction becomes reality and solves real-world problems. Nobel Prize-winning scientists and their teams have demonstrated applications that could change the course of civilization. For example, they have designed a MOF that has an incredible affinity for water molecules. There are already prototypes of devices that use this MOF to literally harvest gallons of clean, drinkable water from dry desert air, using nothing more than ambient sunlight to release the captured water. Another challenge: carbon dioxide. Scientists have designed other MOFs to be the perfect CO2 traps. They can be used to capture carbon directly from power plant smokestacks with unprecedented efficiency, or even, one day, filter CO2 directly from the atmospheric air. They can also safely store volatile and toxic gases, or act as supercatalysts for cleaner and more efficient chemical reactions. MOFs are not just a new material, they are an entirely new design platform. It's as if chemistry has gained its own 3D printer at the molecular level. Need to filter arsenic from water in a village? There's a MOF for that. Need to safely store hydrogen for the cars of the future? We can design a MOF for that. The 2025 Nobel Prize was awarded for the invention of the molecular toolbox that will enable humanity to build, on demand, solutions to some of its most existential problems. The future we are building is one of staggering complexity. On the one hand, we have Google's quantum computer, a machine that is learning to decode the secrets of mathematics and cryptography that structure our digital world. On the other, we have Precision Neuroscience's Layer 7 interface, a technology that is learning to decode the biological patterns of human intention itself. This brings us to this week's central question: which of these two decodings will have the most profound and immediate impact on society? The breaking of our external cryptography, forcing a reinvention of all digital security, or the reading of our internal biology, redefining what it means to be human? Which of today's news stories impacted you the most? The robot with a European passport? The return to the moon with Artemis II? Or the molecular sponges that won the Nobel Prize? Leave your opinion in the comments section below. Debate is what moves us forward. If you believe that understanding these changes is crucial, be part of this community. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. And while you reflect on the future, check out these 2 videos that are already on the screen. They dive even deeper into the technologies that are defining our next era. Stay curious, stay informed, and see you next time.